Mulabinaka, everyone. Well, I'm here from the Ministry of Transport, and I believe that some of you would like to know more about Fiji's way forward in terms of the transportation. For my ministry, in the Ministry of Transport, we have the Ministry of Transport, Works and the Public Utilities. So there's more or less three big sections in this ministry. In terms of the Ministry of Transport alone, and I more or less beg your indulgence that I did not bring any presentation, so I'll be more or less just talking directly to you this morning. But in terms of the transport sector here in Fiji, the ministry more or less looks after our works in consultation with the two licensing authorities, the Land Transport Authority and also the Maritime Safety Authority. I more or less look after land and sea in terms of the policies here in Fiji. The current setup that we have here now is that the other portion of the land, which is more or less the civil aviation, is under the Office of the Attorney General. So he more or less looks after civil aviation in terms of Fiji Airways, in terms of our airports, the international airports, and also the rural outer island airports that we have. But in terms of that, we try all our best to ensure that there's connectivity between our land, sea, and maritime sectors. Fiji has about 169,000 vehicles here in Fiji, which is more or less predominantly dominated by privately owned vehicles. It more or less takes about 60% of the vehicle population. We have about, say, 30 vehicles per kilometer here in Fiji, so our congestion problem is not really that bad. But we still have that in the peak hours between the Suvarnabhumi corridor, and part of it is currently happening in the Nandi corridor. But that is something that we are currently also working on in terms of how best we would be able to expand the current road infrastructures that we have. So in terms of road infrastructure, this is currently undertaken by the Fiji Roads Authority. That authority is currently under the administration of the Prime Minister's office. It used to be in my ministry, but it has been moved now to the Prime Minister's office because we've got the Fiji Roads Authority. It's part of the reform program that Fiji is currently undertaking. So they more or less look at the road infrastructure and also our rural island jetties. The ports, in terms of our international ports, which is more or less Lautoka, Suva, and in Lambasa, that comes under the Fiji Ports Authority. They look after that, and that is also under the Ministry of Public Enterprise. So I'm more or less taking you all over the place. It will be quite a bit confusing to all of you if you hear it for the first time. But I would be more or less be here, then we can talk more so that you'll be able to know which part is more for interest you, then we can try to clarify more so that you'll have a better perspective of it. For the Land Transport Authority, what we are currently doing now, we are reviewing the 1998 Land Transport Act. That is still in process for the Land Transport Authority. I believe that there would be a need, especially when you will have to bring people off the planes and have this land leg or this land connectivity, how best we will be able to have these public service vehicles running more efficiently to move your cargo or even our international passengers. The Maritime Safety Authority is currently also going under a legislation review. We had the Marine Act, but now it's currently been reviewed to have the Maritime Transport Decree. That is going to be replaced this year also. In terms of Fiji's transport overview or the transport sector plan overview, we had a 1993 20-year plan in Fiji, but that is being currently reviewed by the Asian Development Bank right now. We have more or less asked the Asian Development Bank that Fiji needs to have a maritime transport policy and also land transport policy. What we had previously was just a Fiji National Transport Sector Plan and that was a 20-year program. So now coming in, now that it is under review this year, Fiji is more or less embarking into having these two important policies in place to ensure that we will be able to come up with an investment program or a 20-year investment program. That is also part of the ADB program that we are currently undertaking right now. Once we complete the land and maritime transport policies, then they will also at the same time formulate in consultation with the Fiji government the 20-year program of our investment policy in terms of infrastructure. So that will be more or less based on land and sea, and just a little bit touching on the aviation part of it. You may be wondering about in terms of the connectivity between the main islands, between Viti Levu and Vanua Levu. These are the two main islands, and to the maritime island centers, or our islands out in out in the islands. What we have in terms of connectivity is more or less, apart from the aviation or the flights, local flights that we have domestically, we have our vessels. We have vessels that's been moving in between the islands. Between the two main islands, we have the ro-ro vessels, the roll-on, roll-off vessels, who are more or less, they can take about 500 passengers and above with whatever cargo that needs to go across from Suva or from Viti Levu to Vanua Levu. The major ports of origin and destination is between Suva, Savu. That is more or less the points of origin and destination. And also from Natovi to Nambawalu. So they more or less connect Fiji, the two major islands. But in terms of the other islands, the outer islands, we have a Fiji shipping franchise scheme in which government pays a subsidy to the local owners of how best we are able to move local cargo and people across to the islands. And what's happening now is that we are currently having 1 trip per month to these 10 routes. We've more or less demarcated 10 routes to these uneconomical zones. We call them the so-called uneconomical zones just because the rate of productivity is very at minimum, and the profitable level to the operators is not there. So that's where government comes in, kicks in with its subsidy level. That's more or less how we have been doing with the franchise scheme. It's also under review right now, and we are intending where some routes that have been showing indications that it has some economic viability or profitability level, we are thinking of more or less going on a fortnightly basis, so that the more regular vessels that are going out to these outer islands, it generates an economic activity from the outer islands, and they bring it into their cargo into Suva. So that's more or less on the maritime sector. But I'll more or less touch all based on in general, in terms of Fiji Electricity Authority. They have their own extension program. It's more or less coming from Raki on the western side of Viti Levu to Korobo. They are also extending that program. And also in terms of the Fiji Roads Authority, we have these road upgrading programs that goes from Vanua Levu in Reketian to Nambawalu. We also have the Suvarnosori corridor that is also going to have a road upgrading program, and also the Nandi Lotoka corridor. Those are more or less the major corridors that are being undertaken right now to ensure that there's more, that our roads will be more tasseled, and there's more. It can contain or accommodate more vehicles to move our cargo and people around. Few of the programs that are in place, we are considering Savu to have an international port of entry. This is in Vanua Levu. The current port of entry is in Malau of Lambasa, but it more or less is there to cater for sugar. For Savu in Wonolevu is more or less a tourist-based town where most of the yachties come in. And now we are more or less seriously looking at it of how best we will be able to upgrade it to an international port of entry. That is currently in place, and the Fiji Roads Authority have taken that program from the ministry. They've taken over that program. Also, what Fiji is also embarking also is to more or less, whilst we all understand that Fiji is a maritime island country, we're also looking at the Fiji Maritime Academy and how best it can improve the curriculum that we have. It's more or less recognized by IMO, and also we've had the IMO to come in to do the audits of our academy to ensure that our seafarers are qualified and that they will be able to go on to these foreign-going vessels, in which we believe would more or less help or assist in Fiji's economy. Apart from all of that, ladies and gentlemen, just to what we more or less have been doing from the ministry is that we've always had consultation programs going on, but at the end of the year, we've had the National Transport Consultative Forum, in which all stakeholders come in and we discuss issues in regards to transport, how best transport would be able to assist the other sectors in the Fiji government in order to ensure that there's connectivity for the local people and our visitors, and also for cargo. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Bye.